The twin suns of Valtoria burned low in the sky, painting the dusty streets in a red glow. The air smelled of smoke and sand, and the sound of shouting echoed through the square. A crowd had gathered, angry, loud, and full of hate. In the center stood a young alien girl, her knees trembling, her silver-blue skin marked with dirt and blood. Her long white hair clung to her face as stones rained around her. She didn't cry. She didn't run. She just stood still, her eyes wide and empty. Each stone that struck her made a dull sound, like pain had become normal. "Monster," shouted a man from the crowd. "Cursed one," yelled another. "She brings bad luck," a woman screamed, her face twisted with fear. The people of Valtoria believed she carried a disease from the stars, a sickness that had killed their crops and children. None cared for the truth. Fear was easier than reason. From a distance, a tall figure watched quietly. A human. His name was Ethan Cross, a traveler and mechanic from Earth. He had come to the planet to buy parts for his ship and leave before nightfall. But the moment he saw the crowd, he stopped walking. Something deep inside him froze. He saw the small alien girl raise her hands not to fight, but to shield her face from the next stone. She couldn't have been older than 16. Her thin frame shook, but she stayed silent, as if even crying would make them hate her more. Then a sharp stone flew fast through the air and hit her cheek. She fell to her knees. The crowd cheered, and Ethan stepped forward. At first, no one noticed him. He walked slowly, his boots kicking up dust. He wasn't armed, only wearing a black travel jacket and a small satchel. His blue eyes were cold and calm, but there was something dangerous behind them, a kind of quiet anger. When the next stone flew, he didn't stop. He stepped right in front of the girl. The stone hit him square on the shoulder with a hard crack. He didn't flinch. The square went silent. Every alien there stared at him. A human protecting her? Ethan looked around, his voice steady. "Is this what courage looks like on your world? 100 against one frightened girl?" His tone wasn't loud, but it cut through the silence like a blade. The people murmured among themselves. Some lowered their stones. Others glared harder. "She's cursed," one alien growled. "If you touch her, human, you'll die too." Ethan turned slightly, looking down at the girl. Her eyes were wide with shock. He could see fear, confusion, and something else. Hope, maybe. He said softly, "Can you stand?" Her voice was barely a whisper. Why would you protect me?" He didn't answer right away. He reached down and helped her to her feet. Her skin felt cold. "Because," he said finally, "someone should." A few in the crowd started shouting again. "Leave her! She's poison! Kill them both!" Ethan stood his ground. "If you throw another stone," he said, his voice calm but sharp, "then throw it at me." The silence grew heavy again. The people hesitated. No one dared. The sight of a human willing to bleed for an alien girl was something they could not understand. To them, humans were selfish, violent, full of pride. Yet this one stood still, facing them with quiet defiance. One of the guards approached, armored and armed. "Human, this is not your fight. She is forbidden by law. Leave her or be punished." Ethan smiled faintly. "Then punish me too." The guard stared at him for a long moment, then spat on the ground. "You'll regret this." He turned away, motioning the others to back off. The crowd, restless and angry, slowly began to scatter. Some whispered. Some spat at the ground near Ethan's boots. But no one dared throw another stone. When they were gone, the wind carried only the sound of the market banners flapping in the heat. The girl stood trembling, still unable to believe she was alive. Ethan crouched down beside her. "You're hurt," he said gently. He reached into his bag and pulled out a small water pack. She didn't move, her body tense like a cornered animal. He offered the water, waiting. "Drink." She stared at the pack, then at him. Finally, with shaking hands, she took it and drank slowly. The water dripped down her chin as she whispered, "They would have killed me." "I know," Ethan said quietly. "That's why I couldn't walk away." She looked at him again, studying his face. There was no hatred in his eyes, only something she hadn't seen before, kindness. Her lips trembled. "You're not like the others." He gave a faint smile. "Neither are you." For the first time she smiled back, weak but real. Ethan stood and looked around the empty square. The suns were sinking behind the mountains. Night would come soon, and with it more danger. He knew the mob would not forget this. He turned to her. "You can't stay here. Do you have anywhere safe to go?" She shook her head. Nowhere. Then you're coming with me, he said simply. She hesitated. But again, I'm cursed. Ethan shrugged. Guess I'll take my chances. He helped her walk through the silent streets toward the old spaceport. Every shadow seemed to hide watching eyes, but Ethan didn't look back. The girl walked beside him, limping but no longer trembling. As they disappeared into the fading light, the first cold wind of night swept across the market. A single stone rolled across the ground, lonely, forgotten, while somewhere far above, the stars began to shine, and for the first time in her life, the alien girl felt what silence without fear truly sounded like. The stars above Valtoria's night sky shimmered like shards of ice. The wind was cold and full of dust, carrying distant voices that faded into the dark. Ethan walked quickly through the narrow streets, one arm around the trembling alien girl. Her name, he learned quietly, was Lyra. She said it as if afraid even her name might bring trouble. Ethan led her through the shadows until they reached a small docking bay on the edge of the city. His ship, the Wayfarer, stood waiting, a scratched small cargo vessel, half-broken but loyal. Its metal hull reflected the dim lights of the city, a faint promise of escape. Lyra hesitated at the ramp. They'll find me, she whispered. They always find me. Ethan glanced at her and said simply, Then they'll have to find both of us. Inside, the ship smelled of oil and old coffee. Tools hung from the walls and wires ran across the ceiling like vines. Ethan guided her to a small cot near the control room. Sit, he said. You're safe here. She sat slowly, her silver-blue hands gripping the blanket as if afraid it might vanish. Her eyes darted around, taking in the strange human space and the lights, the hum of the engine, the faint warmth from the heater. Why did you do it? She asked quietly. Back there. You could have walked away. Ethan looked down, wiping dust from his gloves. Because I've seen enough people hurt for no reason. Lyra stared at him, unsure how to reply. No one had ever spoken to her like that. To most of her kind, she was a curse. To humans, she was a rumor, a dangerous hybrid who shouldn't exist. The silence stretched between them until the ship's console beeped softly. Ethan checked it and frowned. Patrol signals, guards searching the district. He turned off the lights and motioned her to stay quiet. From the small window, they saw 2 drones sweep by, their red eyes scanning the alleys. Lyra's breath caught in her throat. She pressed her hands together, whispering something in her alien tongue, a prayer maybe. When the drones passed, Ethan relaxed slightly. They won't stop tonight. You'll have to stay here until morning. Lyra nodded, lowering her head. I shouldn't have let you help me. They'll come for you too. Ethan smiled faintly. They'll have to catch me first. For a long moment, she just watched him. There was something strange about this human. Not his strength or his words, but the way he treated her. No disgust, no pity. Just quiet respect, she whispered. You don't fear me? Should I? They say I carry a sickness. That people die if I stay near them. Ethan's tone was calm. People say a lot of things when they're afraid. Lyra looked away. Fear is all they know. Even I started believing them. She pulled her knees to her chest and hid her face. I didn't ask to be born like this. Ethan sat on the floor across from her, his back against the wall. None of us choose how we start, Lyra, but we can choose what we become. The words seemed simple, but to Lyra they felt heavy, like a truth she'd never been allowed to hear. For the first time in years, she let her tears fall. Not from pain, but from release. Ethan looked away, giving her space. He understood that silence sometimes healed more than words. After a while, she spoke again, her voice trembling. When I was small, my mother told me humans were monsters. Then she vanished. I never knew if she was taken, or if she ran. Ethan's jaw tightened. Humans can be monsters, but they can also be more than that. Lyra tilted her head, confused. More? He smiled gently. Sometimes they protect what others destroy. Her eyes softened, reflecting the dim glow of the console. Like you did today. Maybe, he said. Or maybe I was just tired of watching good people suffer. Outside, thunder rolled in the distance. The storm winds began to rise. Ethan stood and covered the small window with a metal shade. Try to rest, he said. You'll need your strength. Lyra hesitated. And you? I'll keep watch. She lay back on the cot, her body still tense but her eyes slowly closing. Ethan sat near the door holding a small plasma tool in his hand, not as a weapon but as comfort. The soft hum of the ship's systems filled the silence. As she drifted into uneasy sleep, Lyra dreamed of that moment again. The human stepping in front of her, the stone hitting his shoulder, the world stopping for a heartbeat. No one had ever taken a blow for her before, and deep inside her heart, something new began to stir, something fragile and unfamiliar. Hope. The night outside was quiet now. Only the low hum of the ship's reactor filled the air. A faint light from the twin moons filtered through the small window, painting soft silver shadows on the metal floor. Ethan sat in the cockpit, his eyes fixed on the radar. The patrol drones had passed, but he knew they would return at dawn. His muscles ached from exhaustion, yet his mind wouldn't rest. Every few minutes he glanced back toward the sleeping girl. Lyra was curled up beneath a blanket, her glowing tattoos dim like fading stars. In sleep she looked peaceful, nothing like the terrified creature from earlier. But even in her rest she flinched sometimes, as if haunted by memories that wouldn't fade. Ethan sighed quietly. He had rescued people before, and smugglers, colonists, lost miners, but none like her. This was different. There was something about Lyra that stirred a strange ache inside him, something between guilt and admiration. When the clock hit 3 a.m., the storm outside broke. The sound of rain against metal echoed like whispers. Lyra stirred and sat up slowly, her silver eyes catching the light. "Couldn't sleep?" Ethan asked, half smiling. She shook her head. "The storm. It reminds me of home." Ethan leaned back in his seat. "You're far from home now." She hesitated, then spoke softly. "I never really had one. I was born in a lab under the capital city. My mother was taken away before I could walk. They said she fell sick after giving birth to me." Ethan's brows furrowed. "A lab, you mean?" "You were created?" Lyra nodded. "They called me a failure. A hybrid experiment that shouldn't exist." She gave a bitter smile. "And when I survived, they feared what I might become." The rain grew heavier. Ethan didn't interrupt. He knew when silence said more than words. "They chased me for years," she continued. "Every town, every colony. I tried to hide, to blend in. But when the sickness came to their farms, they blamed me." Her voice broke, but she didn't cry. "I believed them. I thought maybe I was the curse." Ethan turned his chair toward her, his voice calm but firm. "You're not a curse, Lyra. You're just someone they don't understand." She looked at him, confused. "Why do you care?" "Humans don't help my kind. Not anymore." He gave a small, tired smile. "Maybe I'm just bad at following the rules." For a moment she almost laughed. A sound fragile but real. Then a sudden alarm beeped on the console. Ethan stood quickly, checking the monitor. 2 patrol signals were moving toward the bay. His face hardened. "They found us," he said quietly. Lyra stood too, fear flashing in her eyes. "You have to leave me. If they find me here, they'll kill you too." Ethan grabbed his jacket. "I'm not leaving you." "You don't understand," she insisted, her voice shaking. "They'll never stop. You can't fight them all." Ethan looked at her directly, his voice steady. "Maybe not. But I can make sure they don't take you." She stared at him, trembling.
"Why would you risk your life for me?"
"I'm nothing to you." He walked closer, stopping just in front of her. The rain outside flashed through the window, lighting his face in silver and shadow. "Because no one should stand alone like that." "Not again." Her breath caught. For a heartbeat, she saw something in his eyes. Pain, maybe from his past, or something deeper. The sound of the approaching patrol grew louder. Red lights flickered in the distance. Lyra's voice broke into a whisper. "If you stay, they'll kill you." "Please, Ethan, just go." He smiled faintly. "I've already made my choice." She stepped closer, tears forming in her glowing eyes. "Then I'll stay too." He looked at her, surprised. "If I run again," she said softly, "I'll never stop running. Maybe it's time I stop being afraid." Ethan nodded slowly. "Then we run together, just once more. But this time, for freedom." He rushed to the controls, powering up the engines. The ship's lights flickered to life, humming louder as rain poured harder outside. The patrol ships appeared in the sky, their searchlights cutting through the storm. Lyra took the co-pilot seat, her trembling fingers brushing over the console. "I can jam their scanners for a few seconds," she said quickly. "It's all I can do." Ethan grinned. "That's all I need." The ship lifted, engines roaring against the storm. Thunder cracked as they shot into the clouds. The patrol lights followed, but Lyra's hands glowed faintly. sending ripples of blue light across the screen. And suddenly, the radar went blank. They lost us, Ethan said breathlessly. Lyra leaned back, exhausted but smiling for the first time. We made it? Not yet, he said. But it's a start. Outside, the storm clouds broke open to reveal a quiet sea of stars. For the first time in years, Lyra looked at the sky not with fear, but with wonder. And beside her, Ethan smiled faintly. The night had given them a choice, and together, they had taken it. The Wayfarer soared through the cold clouds of Valtoria, breaking past the planet's atmosphere. Thunder rolled behind them like an angry beast, and lightning flashed against the hull. Ethan gripped the controls tightly, sweat on his brow as the ship trembled under the pressure. Beside him, Lyra sat with her eyes closed, glowing symbols moving across her skin like living light. Her hands hovered above the navigation screen, her energy syncing with the ship's system. Every pulse from her palms helped guide their path through the storm. Keep it steady, Ethan muttered. Once we're past the gravity ring, we'll jump to orbit. Lyra nodded, her voice weak but calm. I'm trying. The storm, it fights against me. The entire cabin shook as a blast hit them from behind. Ethan cursed. They've locked on! Through the rear cameras, 3 patrol ships appeared, their engines glowing red. The alien guards weren't giving up. Missiles streaked toward them like burning arrows. Hold tight, Ethan yelled, pulling the ship into a sharp roll. The missiles missed by inches, exploding in bright bursts of fire. The force rocked the Wayfarer, throwing Lyra against her seat. She gasped. They won't stop. Ethan's jaw tightened. Then neither will we. He slammed a lever forward. The ship's engines roared, blue light streaking behind them as they entered the thin edge of orbit. Lyra's eyes glowed brighter as she pushed her powers to their limit, bending energy fields to confuse the enemy radar. For a moment, the scanners cleared. The patrol ships vanished from view. Ethan exhaled, his heart racing. That should buy us a few minutes. Lyra slumped back, drained. We can't keep running forever, Ethan. He looked at her and smiled softly. Then we'll stop running when they can't catch us. But even as he said it, a blinking light appeared on his screen. A distress signal, short and sharp, coming from within the ship. Ethan froze. Lyra frowned. What is that? He checked the internal sensors. A tracking beacon, active. Someone had planted it on the Wayfarer. Impossible, Ethan whispered. I checked every crate, every panel, then he remembered. The market. The chaos. The people watching as he led Lyra away. Someone must have slipped it onto his ship. The radar lit up again, 6 ships now, closing in fast. Lyra's voice trembled. They found us. Through me. Ethan turned sharply toward her. No, this isn't your fault. Tears welled in her eyes. I was followed. They always follow. I bring trouble wherever I go. Before Ethan could respond, the ship was hit again, this time hard. Alarms screamed, lights flickered, and smoke filled the cabin. The Wayfarer spun wildly, alarms flashing red across every screen. Hang on, Ethan shouted, fighting to stabilize the ship. Lyra gripped the console, her energy sparking. Let me help. Her body began to glow brighter, the markings on her arms pulsing with light. She reached into the ship's systems through the energy field, rerouting power to the shields. The ship steadied, but her strength was fading fast. Ethan grabbed her wrist. Stop, you'll burn yourself out. She shook her head weakly. Better me than you. The engines roared again as the ship leveled out. Through the window, a pale moon loomed ahead, a mining moon long abandoned. That's our chance, Ethan said, pointing. We'll land there and lose them. The ship dove toward the surface, entering the moon's thin atmosphere. Dust clouds and debris swirled as they approached an old mining site. Rusted towers, silent machines, and endless craters. The Wayfarer hit the ground hard, sliding across the sand until it came to a stop. The engines coughed and died. For a few seconds, there was only silence. Then Ethan let out a shaky breath. We're down. Lyra's head rested against the seat. Her skin dimmed, her glow fading. They'll come soon, she whispered. Ethan turned off the console and looked at her. Then we'll be ready. He went to the storage panel, pulling out an old blaster rifle and a repair kit. Lyra tried to stand, but her legs shook. He caught her before she fell. Rest, he said gently. I'll fix what I can. As he worked on the damaged panels, Lyra stared at him, this strange human who had no reason to stay, yet kept risking everything. In the quiet glow of the cabin, she whispered, Why do you fight so hard for me? Ethan paused, his back still turned. Because someone has to. And because once someone didn't fight for me. Her heart ached at his words. She didn't ask more. Outside, the sky of the dead moon shimmered faintly under the starlight. The silence felt heavy but not hopeless. Ethan and Lyra sat together in the dim light of the broken ship. Two fugitives bound by choices neither expected to make. And somewhere out there in the dark void of space, the hunters drew closer, unaware that what they chased was no longer just an alien and a human. It was the beginning of something powerful. Something the galaxy had forgotten. Hope and defiance. The mining moon was silent, a graveyard of steel and dust. Rusted cranes leaned over forgotten tunnels, their shadows stretching long under the cold silver light. Inside the Wayfarer, the air smelled of burnt circuits and tension. Ethan worked quietly, his hands covered in oil and blood. Sparks jumped from the open panels as he reconnected the power lines. Every sound echoed in the stillness. Behind him, Lyra lay on the cot, her body weak but glowing faintly. Her breathing was shallow but steady. For hours, she had drifted in and out of sleep, whispering in her alien tongue, fragments of dreams or memories. When her eyes opened again, she saw Ethan slumped against the wall, exhaustion heavy on his face. He looked older under the harsh light, the kind of tiredness that came from too many lost battles. "Did we lose them?" she asked softly. Ethan nodded without looking up. "For now. The moon's magnetic field hides us, but they'll start scanning soon." Lyra sat up slowly, wincing as pain shot through her side. Her hands glowed faintly as she tried to heal herself, but the light flickered. Her energy was nearly gone. Ethan noticed. "Stop that. You'll drain what's left. I can't just lie here," she said. "I have to help." He sighed and handed her a small device, her broken bracelet, the one she always wore on her wrist. "Then help me understand this." Lyra's eyes widened. "Where did you find it?" "It was fused into your skin when I found you," he said. "I removed it during the repairs. Thought it was just decoration, but when I scanned it..." He turned the device over, revealing a faint red light pulsing inside. "It's not jewelry. It's a data drive." Lyra stared at it, realization dawning. I didn't know." Ethan connected it to the console. The ship's screen flickered to life, showing encrypted files filled with alien symbols. Lyra moved closer, her glowing fingertips brushing the controls. The system responded instantly, unlocking one file after another. What appeared next froze them both. Rows of laboratory images. Medical notes. Genetic charts. Human and alien DNA strands and merging. Experiment logs titled Project Harmony. Lyra's voice trembled. This is where I came from." Ethan leaned forward. "What do you mean?" "They said I was born of sin. But it wasn't sin, it was science. They were trying to create a bridge between humans and my kind." Her eyes filled with tears. A hybrid who could survive both worlds. Ethan scrolled through the documents. The experiments were brutal. Failed subjects, disposal records, and among the signatures at the bottom of every report was one symbol, the crest of the Valtorian High Council. Ethan cursed under his breath. "Your government did this." "They started it," Lyra's voice broke. "They told everyone it was humans who infected us. That humans created the disease." She shook her head. "But it was them. They lied." The truth hit her like a wave. Her entire life, the hatred, the fear, the running, had been built on a lie. Ethan looked at her, his voice low but steady. "That's why they want you dead. You're proof of what they did." She stared at the glowing data, her tears falling silently. "Then I am the curse, but not in the way they think." Ethan placed a hand on her shoulder. "You're not a curse, Lyra, you're the key. If we can get this data to the Galactic Council, we can expose everything." She looked up at him, her voice small but fierce. "They'll kill us before we reach them." He smiled faintly. "They'll have to catch us first." Before Lyra could respond, the ship's alarm beeped, a soft, slow pulse. Movement outside. Ethan grabbed his blaster and checked the scanner. 3 life forms. Not patrol ships, smaller local heat signatures. Lyra frowned. "Miners?" Ethan shook his head. "No miners left here." They crept toward the small window. Outside, figures in black armor moved silently between the rusted machines, their weapons glowing blue. Lyra whispered, "Assassins." Ethan's hand tightened around his gun. "Then they traced the signal before we crashed." He turned to her. "You stay here. Hide the drive. If anything happens, Lyra stood, her eyes glowing brighter. I won't hide again. Before he could argue, she walked past him, her energy pulsing like fire under her skin. The fear that once ruled her had turned into something stronger. Resolve. Ethan followed, weapon ready. Outside, the cold wind bit at their faces. Dust swirled as the assassins approached the ship. Ethan whispered, 3 targets. You take the right. I'll take the left. Lyra nodded, her palms beginning to shine with electric blue light. The first shot came, a flash of energy. Ethan fired back. The silent moon erupted into chaos. Light, dust, and fire filled the air. Lyra unleashed her power, a wave of blue radiance throwing one assassin into the crater. The others regrouped, firing again. Ethan shielded her, blasting through the fog. When it was over, smoke filled the horizon. The assassins were down. The silence returned, heavier but victorious. Lyra fell to her knees, drained but alive. Ethan caught her before she hit the ground. You okay? He asked, breathless. She nodded weakly. We have to leave, before more come. Ethan looked toward the stars, then at the data drive glowing in his hand. We're not running this time, Lyra. We're going to make them listen. And as the Wayfarer lifted once again into the sky, the old mining moon faded behind them, taking with it the ghosts of lies and the birth of truth. The Wayfarer tore through the void like a wounded bird, its engines trailing sparks. The hum of the ship was uneven, trembling under pressure. Inside, every light flickered red. Ethan's hands moved fast across the controls, his jaw tight. Shields at 20%, he muttered. Hull integrity's failing. Lyra sat beside him, weak but alert, her glowing hands pressed against a console. Through her energy, she was keeping the reactor stable. Each pulse of light from her palms synced with the flicker of the ship's core. Her strength was the only thing holding them together. We can't outrun them, Ethan said. They've sent destroyers now. Lyra looked at the radar, 4 massive ships closing in like dark giants. They'll fire the moment we reach orbit, she said softly. They won't risk the truth leaving this system. Ethan turned to her, eyes burning with determination. Then we'll make sure it does. He reached into his jacket and pulled out the data drive, the one that held Project Harmony. This, he said, is what they fear. The galaxy deserves to know what they did to you. To all of us. Lyra stared at it, the faint red glow reflecting in her silver eyes. And how will we send it? We're surrounded. Ethan pointed toward the navigation screen. There's a comm relay station on the far side of the moon. Old, abandoned, but if we can link to it, we can broadcast the data. Her voice trembled. We won't make it alive, he smiled faintly. Doesn't matter as long as the message does. The engines roared as he angled the ship toward the dark side of the moon. The stars outside streaked past, beautiful and deadly. Behind them, the destroyers opened fire. Beams of plasma tore through the blackness, lighting up the cockpit in bursts of blue and white. The ship shuddered violently. Warning lights screamed. One hit slammed into the left wing, throwing both of them to the floor. Ethan grunted, blood on his lip. Lyra crawled toward the console, her energy flaring to reinforce the shield. Her voice was weak but steady. I can buy us time. Ethan pulled himself up. No, you'll burn yourself out, she smiled sadly. Maybe that's what I was made for. Her markings began to glow brighter, so bright that the air itself shimmered. Energy waves flowed from her body into the ship, boosting the shields and engines. For a few seconds, the Wayfarer surged forward like a comet, faster than it had ever flown. But Ethan could see the cost, her hands shaking, her breath slowing. Lyra, stop, she whispered. If I stop, we die. The comm relay came into view, a lonely tower floating above the moon's cratered surface. Ethan steered the ship toward it, heart pounding. Almost there. Another explosion hit the rear. The entire ship screamed as the main engine blew apart. Fire tore through the back corridor. Ethan, Lyra cried. He slammed the emergency seal button. The door closed, trapping the flames behind them. Smoke filled the cockpit. We're going down, he said. Brace. The Wayfarer crashed into the moon's surface, metal screeching and dust exploding into the air. The impact threw them both forward. For a moment, there was only silence and darkness. When Ethan opened his eyes, everything hurt. The cockpit was half destroyed. Alarms blinked weakly. He turned. Lyra lay on the floor, motionless, faint light still flickering under her skin. He crawled to her, shaking her shoulders. Lyra, hey, stay with me. Her eyes fluttered open. Did we make it? He nodded, choking back pain. Close enough. Outside, the destroyers were circling, preparing to finish them. Ethan dragged himself to the console, connecting the data drive. Come on, he muttered. The relay link flickered to life. A faint connection, unstable but working. Lyra weakly touched his arm. You can't do this alone. He looked at her, eyes soft. I never could. Together, they linked their energy into the transmission. The screen glowed as data flooded the channel. Files, images, voices. All of it, the proof of the lies and cruelty that created her, streamed out into the stars. The destroyers fired. The moon trembled. Ethan shouted over the noise. It's working! It's going through. Lyra's glow grew brighter, blinding. Then let it reach them. No matter what. She closed her eyes and poured everything she had left into the signal. The light spread through the wrecked ship, through the relay tower, across the dark sky. The destroyer beam struck, a blast of white fire that consumed everything, and then silence. When the smoke cleared, only fragments of the Wayfarer remained, half buried in dust. The relay tower flickered one last time before sending a final burst of light into the stars. The message was gone, carried far beyond the moon, to worlds that would hear the truth. Among the ruins, a faint glow shimmered beneath the broken hull. Lyra lay motionless, but her hand still sparkled softly. A pulse, slow but alive. Ethan, burned and broken, crawled beside her and whispered, "You did it." And as the stars reflected in her silver eyes one last time, the galaxy began to wake to the truth that had almost died with them, that one act of courage could light the universe. The stars over Valtoria burned brighter than ever before. Across countless worlds, screens flickered to life. Holograms shimmered in government halls, in dusty trade stations, in military ships that had never cared about truth before. And then they saw her, a trembling image of Lyra, silver-skinned, blood-stained, eyes full of light, appeared in every system connected to the Galactic network. Her voice, soft and broken but clear, echoed across the void. My name is Lyra. They said I was cursed, but I was only born of two worlds that feared each other. You were told humans brought the plague. That was a lie. We were experiments. We were children who never asked to exist, and they killed us to hide the truth. Ethan's recorded voice followed, calm and steady. If you're hearing this, the truth is already free. Do not hate. Do not repeat their crimes. Remember what we could become, not what fear made us. The message spread like fire through the stars. The great powers tried to silence it, but it was too late. The transmission had been copied, shared, saved by millions. The name Lyra became a spark in every tongue. On the mining moon where it had all ended, the wind carried fine silver dust across the wreckage of the Wayfarer. The ship's hull was cracked and scorched. A monument of sacrifice from beneath the broken metal. Faint movement stirred, a small pulse of light, weak, but alive. Lyra gasped softly as air filled her lungs. She opened her eyes to the pale horizon. Everything hurt. Her body was burned and cold, but she was alive. Her first thought was Ethan. She crawled through the wreckage, her hands shaking. The ground was rough beneath her glowing fingers. She called out, "Ethan?" No answer. Her heart pounded harder. "Ethan!" Then she saw him, half buried beneath a piece of metal, his face still, covered in dust and blood. She dropped to her knees beside him. "Please," she whispered, her voice breaking. "Don't leave me now." She pressed her hands against his chest, her energy flowing weakly into him. But it wasn't enough. Her light flickered, tears streamed down her cheeks. "You said we'd make them listen." "And we did." "You can't go before seeing it." Then, faintly, a breath. His fingers twitched. Lyra let out a sob of relief. Ethan's eyes opened slowly, blue as the sky. He coughed and smiled faintly. "Still here, huh?" She laughed through her tears. "Barely." He looked at the horizon. "Did it work?" Lyra nodded, smiling through exhaustion. "The whole galaxy knows." For a long time they sat there in silence, surrounded by dust and broken metal, watching the sun rise over the dead moon. "You should go," Ethan said weakly. "There'll be rescue teams soon. Not all of them friendly." "I'm not leaving you," she said. He smiled again. the kind of smile that held both pain and peace. You already gave me more than I deserve. Lyra shook her head fiercely. No. You gave me something I never had, a reason to live. He tried to speak, but she hushed him gently, pressing her forehead to his. The warmth between them said more than words ever could. Moments later, a shadow fell over them. A small civilian freighter landed nearby, drawn by the distress beacon that had triggered after the transmission. Two figures ran out, gasping when they saw them. By the stars, you're the ones from the message. Lyra nodded slowly. Help him first. They lifted Ethan onto a stretcher. Lyra followed, stumbling, her strength nearly gone. As the ship lifted off, she looked down through the window at the broken wayfarer. Their home, their battle, their promise. Weeks later, the story spread everywhere. The Galactic Council held emergency hearings. The High Council of Valtoria collapsed under evidence of their crimes. People who once feared hybrids began building clinics, shelters, and new schools. Harmony centers, they called them, after the project that created her. But to the people, she was not an experiment. She was a symbol. Statues of Lyra and Ethan were raised in plazas and colonies across the stars. A human shielding an alien girl. The moment that started it all. Yet Lyra herself avoided the crowds. She sat quietly on a green hill of a distant world, the wind soft, the sky calm. Ethan, still healing, joined her, limping slightly but alive. They remember you, he said. You changed everything. She smiled faintly, her eyes on the horizon. No, we did. Ethan looked at her, his voice gentle. Do you ever regret it? Lyra thought for a moment. Regret surviving? No regret believing in hope? Never. She looked up at the stars, the same ones that once watched her in chains, now glittering with freedom. There was a time I thought silence was safety, she said softly. But sometimes, a single voice can echo across galaxies. Ethan smiled. Yours did. A soft breeze swept over them, carrying the scent of flowers. Lyra reached out, taking his hand. Then let's make sure it never goes quiet again. They sat together under the vast, endless sky. Two souls from different worlds who had proven that compassion could break empires, and that courage, once awakened, could never be silenced. And far above, among the stars, the universe whispered her name. Lyra, the girl who changed everything,